I'm doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop so I can come down to you? These are the words of Nehemiah as he built the walls fortifying Jerusalem over 2,000 years ago, as told in the book of Nehemiah in the Bible. Today we see, just as it was back then, that Jerusalem is the source of heavy conflict in the Middle East, with multiple groups of people vying for control over the ancient city, and global powers weighing in on the conflicts that have been brewing over centuries. Join us as we delve into the mystifying history of Jerusalem and Israel, exploring the ongoing struggles and complexities that have shaped this ancient area for over 2,000 years. Through riveting discussions, we unravel the mysteries surrounding Israel's pivotal role in global affairs, its significance in the Abrahamic faiths, and the intricate web of U.S. foreign policy in the broader Middle East. Get ready to expand your understanding of one of the most misunderstood regions on Earth, here on the Great Work Podcast. So, welcome to the Great Work Podcast. This is Rabbi Uri Pilichowski. I pronounced that right, correct?
You got it.
Awesome. So I've actually met him before. He was nice enough to invite me and 40 other kids into his home randomly in January of 20. So we got to experience what a settlement is like firsthand. And if I've learned anything from that, settlements are completely different in real life than how they're portrayed in my comments and online. So, Rabbi Pilichowski, if you can just give a little background on you, and we can go from there.
I am an educator. That's what I do. I'm a rabbi, an Orthodox rabbi. I live in a place called Mitzpeh, which is about 20 minutes northeast of Jerusalem, on the highway from Jerusalem to the Dead Sea. I live between Jerusalem and Jericho, and my wife is the mayor of our town and father of 6 wonderful children. And that's me. That's me in a nutshell.
Awesome. So you moved to where you live now from the States, correct?
Correct. I moved from Boca Raton, Florida.
Awesome. So can you tell everyone a little bit about why you wanted to move to where you live now rather than Boca?
Sure. So I wanted to live in Israel. Israel is the home of the Jewish people. So that was always a place that I wanted to live and do want to live. And so that was the impetus to the move to Israel. And then, and specifically to the town that I'm in, which a lot of people refer to as a settlement. And because it's a Jewish town in what's called Judea and Samaria, that's what we call it. The world probably knows it a little better by the term West Bank. Town that is mostly Jewish, or there are no mixed towns. So it's either there are Arab towns and there are Jewish towns. So Jewish towns the world likes to call settlements. Arab towns are called cities or villages. And so we moved here, not for ideological reasons, which everybody thinks that settlers live in settlements before ideological reasons. It's actually not true. There are some, for sure, but the overwhelming, there are 500,000 of us, and the overwhelming reason why I would say 90% of people that live here for economic reasons, for the beauty of the land out here, for more practical reasons. I wanted to live in a place that was close to Jerusalem and affordable, that had large housing that I'm accustomed to as an American. And I didn't want to share walls with anybody. I'm not a big fan of apartments. And so the town that I lived in is absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. And I loved it. It looks like deserts like Arizona and Nevada is what Americans would be most comparable to. It's silent almost all the time. I have my window open here, and you can hear there's absolutely no background noise whatsoever. And so it's a beautiful place, and it was an affordable place to live. Great schooling for the kids, and contrary to what many people believe, it's actually very peaceful here. All of that made it a very attractive place to move to.
Definitely. That's one of the things that I heard, going to Israel on the trip I went on. They talked about the settlements. And when I hear that, knowing what we see in the news, some of the people on my trip were a little bit scared. And I was very surprised to pull in, and it looks like a suburban neighborhood in the United States. You're totally right. That's exactly what it looks like. It's crazy how much it's demonized today in the media. And like you said, you are very rational. But people living in these settlements are not portrayed that way. Can you talk a little bit about what that's like, living that experience, but seeing you portrayed in a different light?
Right. So I assume that many people have the same experience in some way. I think most minorities feel that they're portrayed differently than they actually are, and I think it's hurtful. Obviously, it's frustrating to read things about when the president of the United States talks about your extremist elements and they don't actually exist, and you sit there and want to scream and say, "Wait a minute, you've never been here, you don't know. None of your staff has been here, they don't know." Everybody's just reading second, third, fourth hand reports. So it's frustrating. I try to do things like this where I try to educate people, but obviously I encourage people to come visit because you're not going to really understand the place until you go there.
Totally. Totally. It's especially weird when we see people like the president of the United States say things like illegal settlements, because this is the same people that say we can't call immigrants coming through the southern border illegal. It's immoral to call anyone illegal, but they call that to you and all the people in your town. I just find that kind of interesting. Look good? It says can you refresh your page? Okay. That's what it's telling me to tell you to do.
Okay. I don't know if can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear and see you.
Okay. So I don't know if you edit this afterwards.
Yeah.
I hope this wasn't live. You do. Okay. So I'll start with the question that you asked and from there. So I'm not sure if the president of the United States has ever called settlements illegal. I think the only President Carter, for sure, I know for a fact, only President Carter maintained that settlements were illegal, like all settlements. Created a new doctrine, which is referred to as the Pompeo Doctrine because Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said it, which is that Jewish settlements in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, are not inconsistent with international law. Per se inconsistent with international laws, the exact words that he said, and the Biden administration has never gone back on that. When people talk about illegal settlements, if they're from the United States and they're parroting the American official stance, so what they're referring to are settlements that Israel considers illegal as well, and those are when people will just go up onto a random hilltop and build something and say, now we're starting a town. So just like anywhere else in the world, you can't just start cities without the government's permission. So that's what illegal settlements are. But I don't think I've ever seen President Biden refer to settlements as illegal. I'd be shocked if he did. But that's what I think it is. So people will say that we're impediments to peace. People will say that our growth are impediments to peace. But I don't know if they'll use the word. The international community uses the word illegal a lot, because the international community maintains that Jewish settlements are illegal. So that's why they say.
Yeah, I might be parroting some of the comments that I get all the time that people talk about illegal settlements.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're, yes, referring to the ones that are illegal, but they're referring to all settlements that way. And
Right.
That, of course, is not true. And kind of one of the problems with this is people use these words and they think they're like a mic drop, and they're not. They're the impediments to peace.
So it depends. I mean, I'm an educator, right? So yes. I definitely have, I would like people to, to treat and refer to us as we are, but there is an argument to be made that my settlement is illegal, because the international community does read the Geneva Convention that way. So if, let's say, somebody from your school would say that all settlements are illegal, they wouldn't be mirroring the American position, but they would be mirroring many people's positions. So it's a dispute. There's no legal rule that says that the international law that says that they're specifically talking about our towns and saying they're illegal. But many people read the Geneva Convention to say that they are. And there are United Nations resolutions, one that was passed at the end of 2017, at the end of 2016, excuse me, that says, now UN resolutions don't make law, but again, they could be referring to that resolution and say, just as the resolution says, settlements are illegal. So we shouldn't discount them, off the bat, because they have someone that they're relying on. In fact, probably the majority of the world feels that way. We're the minority that we feel we're legal, but legality isn't determined by majority rule. Legality is determined by a reading of the law, and there are no arbiters for the reading of the law. So Israel and the United States will maintain that they're legal. The international community will maintain that they're illegal.
So one of the most offensive things that I see also when referring to these settlements is when people are talking about, let's say, the terrorist attack on October 7th and how horrific that was. And then in the same breath, they'll bring up, well, but the Israeli settlers, those two things could not be more different. You guys are peaceful people living in a neighborhood, and Hamas is a terrorist organization that went into other people's homes and committed atrocities. Can you talk a little bit about, do you see that at all in American discourse, or do you have a response to that?
Yeah, so I definitely see it. There are people that justify Hamas's attacks and the Palestinian terrorist attacks on us, and say that they justify it by talking about settlements. Nothing could be more offensive to me than saying that my actions justify rape, murder, kidnapping, beheading, burning people alive. The atrocities that were committed were so barbaric and so savage. Psychologists here in Israel have warned us that mere knowledge of the atrocities, just knowledge, not seeing video, not seeing pictures, mere knowledge of the atrocities can have an effect on the psyche that no amount of therapy in your life will ever heal. So they're warning people before becoming aware of all the atrocities, and they're not being reported in the mainstream media for that reason, because they're aware of how bad this is. I am aware of what occurred to the deepest extent of what occurred, and I can tell you without exaggeration, without hyperbole, that if the actual Nazis came here from the 1940s and saw what had happened, they would be shocked. There's nothing in all my studies of Holocaust, of history, that has seen anything even remotely as atrocious as what Palestinian terrorists committed on October 7th. And to say that anything that we might have done, our community might have done simply by living here, would justify those atrocities is deeply offensive and a perversion of all morality.
Definitely. When we talk about the peace process post October 7th, again, I see Hamas using the settlements as, well, now these need to go away in order for peace after this. Saudi Arabia came out and said they want a state based on 67 borders. The international community knows that will never happen. What do you personally think after October 7th, like the path to peace would look like?
So I think that before October 7th, peace was a farce in terms of the possibilities of peace. And after October 7th, it's only even more difficult. We've had multiple peace processes for the last 75 years. The Palestinians have always been able to make peace with Israel. Israel has always had an open hand it's written in our Declaration of Independence that we would like to have peace. We accepted a two-state solution in 1947, let alone again in 1993 and in 1999 and in 2000 and we've always had our hands open, and now the Palestinians won't negotiate for peace. So the idea that they could have peace is I don't know where it comes from. And the Biden administration has been the first American administration not to come up with a peace plan because they realized how futile it is. That's something that the first ambassador to Israel from America under this administration said, that they're not going to be trying to make a peace process because there's no point in wasting the capital on it. There would have to be a fundamental change in the Palestinian leadership and the Palestinian culture. Right now, Palestinian culture incentivizes terrorism by paying terrorists. Right now, they spend over $400 million a year in something called pay for slay, where they pay terrorists based on how long their jail sentences are dependent on the heinousness of their act. So if you've killed 4 people in a terrorist attack, your jail sentence will be longer, and then your monthly payment will be longer. One of my childhood friends was murdered by a Palestinian in a terrorist attack as he left a supermarket running errands for his wife, and was stabbed to death by a Palestinian 16-year-old. Through the course of his life, this 16-year-old will make over $1 million from the Palestinian Authority in monthly stipend for being a terrorist and surviving the terrorist attack. That money could either go to him in a Swiss bank account or could go to his family. He'll make 6 times the amount he would have made had he become a public school teacher in the Palestinian Authority, being paid by the exact same government. So those type of things where they're educating their children to hate and educating their children to be violent, I don't see how you get past that when it comes to a peace plan. How do you then get those people to have peace? That's the pessimistic way of looking at it. A more positive way of looking at it could be that Mahmoud Abbas is turning 88, I think, this week or last week. He has survived 4 bouts of cancer. So he's in his 18th year of a 4-year term. I think that his time is coming up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think it'll be that much longer that he'll be the leader of the Palestinian people. And that being said, so who's next? There's no heir to the throne. They don't have a vice president. They don't have anything like that. They don't have anybody that has been designated or the world can come to and say that's for sure the person. But if we somehow found some sort of moderate, which again is a fallacy that we thought we would have after Yasser Arafat died and Mahmoud Abbas took over 18 years ago. But if something like that happened and the Palestinians would openly admit that they have lost, that this is a battle that they've been waging now for 75 years and they've lost, and therefore they will now come and see what they can get to the advantage of their people. And then from that point of view, maybe you could have a peace process. If it's something that we're going to hold the Israelis hostage under violence if they don't agree to peace, then I don't think there's a chance for peace going forward for decades, if not more.
Definitely. So to back off of the kind of more contentious topics a little bit, can you talk about, again, like I went to, I think, your neighborhood and one other settlement. They were beautiful, like a suburban neighborhood. You have kids. Can you talk about what just everyday life is like in the settlements, what it's like if you want to go into Jerusalem? You cannot go into somewhere like Ramallah, but if you wanted to, what would that look like? Things like that.
So life here is like anywhere else. Like we pull into our community. We have a little more security than most people. We have neighbors that have declared that they want to kill us. So that's something that we have to be on guard about. But other than that, you'll see a security presence in terms of when you come in to the entrance of the town, especially now during war. There added security, but we have private security. We have the military as well that does checks. Today, the military is here because we've had attempted infiltration on October 7th and since October 7th. So we have soldiers that are stationed here now. But other than that, we have schools, we have playgrounds, we have a swimming pool. We're about to open up a new sports center. So it's a regular town. We wouldn't see anything more different than any other town. There are areas that we are not allowed to go into. Those are what's called Area A under the Oslo Accords, and the Oslo Accords split Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, up into 3 different areas: Area A, Area B, and Area C. Area C is controlled by Israel. Area B is a sort of joint areas. There's nobody lives in them, but they're joint areas between the Palestinian Authority and Israel. And Area A is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Those are too dangerous for us to go into, and there are big, massive red signs. If anybody wants to see them, they could type in to Google Images, big red sign, Palestinian towns, and you'll see what the signs say. And they say in Hebrew and Arabic and in English that no Israelis are allowed into the town because it's dangerous to your life. There's no way of the Israeli army protecting you in those towns. So that's Julia, all these different Arab towns.
Yes, I'll insert a clip. I took a picture of that sign when we went into there. Yeah. So you can go into Jerusalem freely and things like that.
25-minute drive from here. Yeah. Checkpoint. There's a checkpoint to make sure. And Palestinians who live inside Judea and Samaria, right? Arabs that identify as Palestinians that live in Jerusalem or live in mainland Israel have either Israeli citizenship or Israeli residency, and they can drive anywhere they want. Arabs that live in Judea and Samaria, the West Bank, so they're not Israeli citizens, and they need a permit to be able to cross over into Israel, just like any other border anywhere else in the world. So you drive over the Canadian border. Canadian needs some sort of a visa or something to be able to get over the border. Same thing with Palestinians coming into Israel. They need a visa, and over 120,000 a day cross over that border.
Yes. Okay. Awesome. Trying to think my other questions I had for you. Is there anything else you would like to talk about?
I just think that people should visit. I think that people come to Israel and they tend to stay away because they're nervous. But it's secure, and you don't have to travel into the middle of the country and go to a place that is contentious or that it might be might have violence. You can come to a place like mine, which is 20 minutes away. There's a city that's 10 minutes outside of Jerusalem called Ma'ale Adumim, which has 45,000 Jews living in it. and that's a regular city. You can see that and really understand, what it is that's happening here, and talk to people in the know. Don't only take one side of the argument, right? You have an open mind and do evidence-based research, right? So, and it's okay to come up with a position that's different than mine, but you should at least know both sides before you go ahead and make a decision. That's what I would suggest. So, yeah, I'm in education. I try to be logical. So I think that people should take a logical position and have a conversation with somebody that lives here. But it's very difficult to get a sense of what is happening somewhere else without having seen it and without talking to the people that are there.
I have to ask you about Israelis and Arabs living in separate neighborhoods. Candace Owens recently did some interview talking about how she feels that is akin to segregation in the South. That was not at all my experience being there.
Right.
I think it is wrong if it's forced, but if people choose to live that way, why would we fault them for it? Can you talk a little bit about why she has a misunderstanding?
Right. So first of all, Candace Owens was factually incorrect.
Yes.
Candace Owens was in her interview was referring to Jerusalem's Old City. Mm-hmm. And Jerusalem's Old City has 4 neighborhoods. So they're 4 neighborhoods, and they're called the Armenian Quarter, the Christian Quarter, the Muslim Quarter, and the Jewish Quarter. And anybody can live in any of them. That's just their names. And that's their names because 100 years ago, that's how, before there was a state of Israel and under the British mandate, then that's just how the area was divided at that time. Most Muslims lived in the Muslim Quarter, but there are Jews that live in the Muslim Quarter, there are Muslims that live in the Jewish Quarter, and Christians live everywhere, and Armenians live everywhere. And there are very few Armenians that live in Israel. But that's just the names. And then for some reason she came up and said that segregation to have only Jews and only Muslims in those quarters, which just factually isn't even true. Yes. I don't even know why she would even think that was true. And a simple Wikipedia search would tell you that that's not true. That's not a talking point. That's not a narrative. Even Palestinians who want to make Israel look horrible would never say such a thing because it's so absurd and so easily verifiable it's not true. Had she said that if you go into Judea and Samaria and you look and you say there are no mixed cities. In Israel proper, there are many, many mixed cities. Lod, where you land when you come into Israel. Everybody thinks you land in Tel Aviv. You don't actually land in Tel Aviv. The airport's actually in a city called Lod. Lod is divided between Arabs and Jews. Akko is divided between Arabs and Jews. Haifa, Arabs and Jews. Tel Aviv, Arabs and Jews. Jerusalem, Arabs and Jews. And so there are cities inside of Israel are divided. Once you cross the line into the West Bank and into Judea and Samaria, so that those cities are divided, but not by law. Those cities are divided by people's choices. So an Arab could now. I don't have any Arabs living here, and the only city that is mixed inside Judea and Samaria is Hebron. And in Hebron, the neighborhoods are completely divided with security barriers between them because they've showed the world both sides cannot live with the other. So they keep a separation between them. But an Arab is legally allowed to live here in my town with no problem. And there are actually Jews that live in Ramallah. They're strange, but they do live there. And so it does exist. There's a famous reporter for Haaretz, which is the left-leaning Israeli newspaper. And one of their reporters is Jewish and lives in Ramallah. I don't know why. I don't know if she's making a point, but she's lived there for decades. So there's no laws against it. So Candace Owens is incorrect in terms of what she was actually talking about. She got the facts wrong. And then even if she had talked about a different area, she would still have been wrong. So I don't know. Yeah, Candace Owens has. I remember sitting when the embassy was moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So so that was a very hot ticket to get. And I was invited by somebody. I got a ticket. I was very excited. And sitting 3 rows in front of me was Candace Owens, and I was very surprised that she was there. So that's she flew in from America for this, so that's a big deal. But I don't know then she was very pro-Israel. So I feel like the last couple of weeks she's turned on Israel and American values in terms of its relationship with Israel. I don't know where it's coming from. I don't know what's causing it, and it's a little sad. But that was completely off. So that's what is the actual truth of what goes on here. There are no laws that separate Jews and Arabs. There's nothing that, but just an Arab wouldn't feel comfortable in my community. Let's say there are Arabs that call up and call our town up and call my wife up and say, we'd like to move in. Can we? So yes, but we're also a town that's Shabbat observant. So you can't drive on the streets here. So if you're an Arab, you're obviously not Shabbat observant. Why would you be? And so the idea that you wouldn't be able to drive on Saturdays, a Friday night to Saturday night in your car for no reason whatsoever is, it doesn't make our town too attractive to. Forget about Arabs. Also, non-Shomer Shabbat Jews don't live here, right? So, and we don't discriminate against them. Anybody could move in. But so that's the truth. I don't know where that comes from.
Okay. Thank you for that. And then my last question is talking a little bit. So the trip I went on where you were kind and invited us into your home was put together through AIPAC. I know you've worked with AIPAC before. Can you talk a little bit about AIPAC and like what it's not funded by the Israeli government. It's an advocacy group for I keep seeing these videos of this girl who makes actually very factually correct, great videos about kind of dispelling the pro-Palestine myths. But she'll end the video with saying, so that's all wrong. Don't say that. Just follow the money back to AIPAC. That's the whole reason Israel exists. I'm like, well, that's wrong though. That's not at all correct. So can you talk a little bit about like your involvement with AIPAC and why it's not this like evil quasi government organization?
So I tell you, I don't work for AIPAC. I never have. But I do. I've been an AIPAC member for over a decade. And I think it's a great organization. AIPAC is an American organization. It's not Israeli and it's not even Jewish. There are Jewish members, there are non-Jewish members. There's nothing that it does per se that's Jewish. And usually at its events, the food is kosher only because a lot of the people there can only eat kosher. So it makes it much easier if they serve kosher food. But it's not an Israeli organization. It doesn't get any money from Israel. It's not influenced by Israel. It doesn't take direction from Israel. It's a purely American lobbying organization. It doesn't have to register as a foreign lobbying organization because it's not in America's safety and security. That's their primary interest. They believe that America is best served with a strong relationship with Israel. They believe so because Israel is a leader in technology. Israel is a leader in innovation, especially when it comes to defense. So anything America produces, Israel will make better. We're seeing that now with the F-35S jet, which Israel has improved to the extent where it can fly over Damascus now, and the Russia's air defense systems don't even get alerted. So that's something that America could not have done on its own without Israeli innovation. So that's very important. That's very important. We have the most important thing is that we share values, and in a dark neighborhood where nobody else around us shares America's values. Not Egypt, not Jordan, not Lebanon, not Saudi Arabia. It's a joke to even propose such a concept that anybody around here believes in freedom and equality and the pursuit of happiness and life, for that matter, is a joke. So it's in Israel's best interest to have in America's best interest to have a relationship with Israel, and Israel's best interest to have a relationship with America. That's what the members of AIPAC believe, and they recognize the fact that American decisions are made by American elected officials. It's a democracy. That's how it works. So they lobby members of Congress, for the most part, Congress and the Senate, to pass legislation that strengthens the U.S.-Israel relationship. That's where it is. It's nothing insidious. It's nothing illegal. There's no bribery. There's no like under the table anything. It's a very transparent organization. In the last 4 years, they've taken a shift from what they were before. Before they never rated or endorsed candidates or gave money to candidates. With the changing partisan times in Washington, AIPAC's made a strategic decision to shift to becoming a regular PAC or opening PACs, where they now do give money to candidates that are pro-Israel to make sure that they stay in office. Now, again, when I say give money to candidates, I mean to their re-election campaigns. You're not allowed to give money to candidates, yes. Right? So I don't know who's listening, make sure they understand what this is. And this is how every lobby and every issue, from anything from things that are as positive as the AARP, the American Association of Retired People, to things that I believe are insidious, like the tobacco industry. Even though I'm a cigar smoker, I still don't think that's a positive thing for the United States. So that's how everybody works. And as long as you're keeping the laws, you by definition will be transparent because the laws make you transparent. You cannot do anything secretly. So, or you will eventually get caught. Lobbies get caught all the time doing illegal things. AIPAC's been around for 6 decades. If it was doing something illegal, it would have gotten caught already. It happens to be a very powerful lobby for the very simple reason that 97% of Congress believe in a strong U.S. Israel. So it's very easy to get on board with something that you believe in anyway, right? So it's a no-brainer for most members of Congress. There are 8 or 9 members of Congress that don't understand the value of the U.S.-Israel relationship yet. So they've made themselves opponents of the U.S.-Israel relationship. For the most part, it's very difficult to understand why. But so AIPAC goes out and tries to ensure that every member of Congress is a fan and work hard towards a strong U.S.-Israel relationship. That's the whole thing. That's the whole AIPAC, And if you think that that's insidious, which is if you believe that the entire lobbying system in America is insidious, which people do, people think that there should be no PACs, and okay, that's great. I'm not sure how you then are going to imagine the political system going forward. I've never heard of anyone then delineate how representatives are supposed to understand or raise the funds necessary for their reelection campaigns. If you get rid of PACs, what you're going to end up having is only members of Congress that are multimillionaires that can afford their own campaigns, because otherwise there'll be no way of raising money. This way, what you have is members of Congress or candidates for Congress that go out and say, okay, I'm for the following issues, and then people that are for those issues are able to pool their money together, then give that to a member of Congress, that candidate's campaign, and then that candidate will have the wherewithal to counter an opponent who has opposite views. So if you believe in free loans for college and you support a candidate that believes that or no loans and college should be free, so then you'll support that candidate and somebody else will support the other candidate. That's how it works. So that's the American system. I don't see a better system. If somebody has it, I'd love to hear.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much again. I feel like this really cleared up a lot of the issues or things that people keep asking. If there's anything else you'd like to say, you can say.
Yeah, people can reach out to me. You can find me online very easily. You can reach out to me, and if you have any questions, and I'll try my very best to answer them. I get a little busy here and there, but I'll try my best to answer any questions you have. And I'm on social media, so you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and see my writings there as well.
Yeah, I'll link you in the description so people can find your stuff. Well, thank you so much again. I'll go ahead and stop recording.